if I told you that the most valuable thing you can do for your child educationally is also something easy and cheap to add to your schedule? Would you develop that habit? My name is Eloise Leher, and I'm a teacher and a mother of 3 and an author. And I'm here to talk to you about the 5 things I think we want from education and the one habit that can give all 5. Reading aloud to your children. It's my intention to give you my research and our personal experience that has proved this activity to be the most valuable thing I can do for my children educationally. I want my children to learn to communicate well. I want them to learn to be able to think. I want them to learn to have courage, to know themselves and others. And I want them to love truth. And I believe that reading aloud teaches all 5 of these skills. Firstly, let's look at communicating well. I'm convinced that language is caught, not taught. We can teach grammar rules and order of sentences and verb tenses as much as we want. But nothing teaches language like catching it quite naturally. We know that our children are natural learners. So offer them a feast of beautiful language. Read to them, because when you do that, you do the hard work of decoding. Kids can learn and understand vocabulary well above their reading level if you do this kind of decoding for them, especially when it's in context of a story they are enjoying and tracking along with. I remember when Juliet was only little, she's my youngest, and I decided that she would not be included in our reading of The Hobbit. The reading was ambitious anyway for the others, and I just knew it was out of her reach. So I insisted that she read with Daddy. Well, she'd have none of it, as you can imagine, the youngest. And so I said, fine, you join us and you just do Mummy's hair during the reading. I was by far the best dressed Tolkien reader in history. But something else happened. A couple of weeks later, on a Saturday afternoon, Juliet stormed into a room we were all in and proceeded to do a very impressive Gollum impersonation using that vocabulary well above her age and showing an understanding and a love for the story that was uncanny. I'm convinced kids are able to understand in the context of reading and of good stories way more than we think they can. The second advantage is to be able to learn to think. We live in an age of information, and I've said before that the task of education today is not to give children information. They are not empty buckets for us to fill. Instead, we need to give them tools to manipulate information, to ask questions, to see bias, and very importantly, to see connection between what they're reading and their real lives. This is what reading comprehension really should be. We're so keen for our children to develop IQ, the measure of a person to reason and think. And I think nothing encourages it more than interacting with great literature. Making connections is what we have to teach our children to do. And I'll remind you that children are natural learners. If we create an environment, they will learn. And nothing creates environment better than a great story, one that captures their imagination and fills them with wonder. I remember lying on a picnic blanket with Judah and Juliet reading the first Harry Potter, and a massive African harrier hawk landed on our tree as if to come listen to the story. We were in awe, convinced he had come from Hogwarts. The environment was set, the space was set, and the children were like sponges for the story and the beautiful language that came with it. Kids respond to suggestion and story, and their imaginations are fertile. I remember how Sophia, even at the age of 9, was on a sugar high every time we read a bit of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It was like the ideas themselves instigated a response in her that was just similar to drinking a cup of hot chocolate. And the conversations that these wonderful springboards offer us to have is second to none. We've just finished Laura Martin's thrilling story, The Edge of Extinction. It is a story set in the future where dinosaurs are brought back and mankind has to deal with the fact that they have now taken over. We've discussed ethical things and things of leadership, things of management and of the role of mankind in the world. Great stories give us springboards to have incredible conversations and to learn to think and reason. So we've spoken about being good communicators, about being able to think, and thirdly, reading aloud to children offers them the opportunity to learn courage. We want our children to be courageous, to tackle with candor the obstacles in their lives. Reading aloud offers them vicarious opportunities to be courageous through the eyes of other kids and of protagonists all the time. They slay dragons, they face bad guys, they solve problems alongside protagonists that they see themselves in. Let's call this one AQ, adversity quotient. It's the measure and the ability of a person to deal with adversity in their lives. We loved Dean Pitchford's Captain Nobody. In the story, a middle grade boy, his brother is in a football accident and is paralyzed for some days. And during these days, our little hero has to find out who is he and does he have courage to face adversity like his brother being in peril like that? And can he find the superhero in him? It's a hilarious book. You should really get your hands on it. And what's marvelous is it gives our kids and ourselves alongside them the opportunity to think through, how would I react if I were in the shoes of the protagonist? We want children to know themselves and others. Let's think of EQ, the ability to understand, use, and manage your own emotions in positive ways to relieve stress, communicate effectively, empathize with others, and overcome challenges and diffuse conflict. It's a mouthful. Of course we want it for our children. I'm convinced that the opposite of poverty is having choice. Nothing offers us choice like good stories. We put ourselves in the shoes of someone else and through that think how we would handle situations. What this does is it gives us a knowledge of ourselves, but it also gives us a knowledge of the journey other people walk. Who am I? Who do I want to be? How would I handle a situation like the one the protagonist is facing? How do other people live? Some of the things that I find take for granted, do other people have these privileges? Can I find myself more grateful for the situations I have? Now, Eleanor Estes writes the most wonderful book called 100 Dresses. And in the story, an immigrant girl called Wanda arrives at school every day, poor and dirty, but talks of the 100 dresses that hang in her cupboard. The story asks us, how would we handle Wanda's life? But more powerfully still, it asks us, would we join the children who tease her? In the end of the story, a great reveal, which I won't spoil, shows us that we should have much compassion for Wanda. But we wonder and we understand also that we see the way the bullies would act and the children who don't want to counter the bullies. We see ourselves in other people's situations and challenge our own thinking and help us understand how other people behave. This is such an incredible vehicle for seeing the way that people in different places across the world have to handle life. Lastly, Reading Aloud offers us the opportunity to love truth. Andrew Peterson, the author of the Wing Feather Saga, says that if you wanted children to know truth, you could tell them truth. But if you wanted them to love truth, you need to tell them a story. This is so true for us as adults too. We're educating whole people, minds that are sharp and educated but are not connected to hearts that love truth are dangerous things. Our job is very big, but I have found that when I want to impart what I believe to be true to my children, I can do so through the vehicle of stories. None of us love to be told what to think and what to feel. But when we walk along a story and it questions quite organically what is true, it's a much more effective vehicle for these conversations and for imparting hope and faith. It's a funny thing to think that we would lie to our children, read to them stories that are not true, to be able to reveal truth. We walked alongside Mary in the secret garden, and we thought her spoiled and difficult, and we thought we'd never act the way she did. And then through friendship and discovery and adventure, we saw Mary's character grow and felt that we could grow with her and be more sure at the end of the story about what is true and good and what brings hope than we were at the beginning of the story. So to recap, imagine if I could give you one habit that would teach your children to communicate well, that would help them develop the ability to think, that would encourage real courage, that would help them know themselves and empathize with others, and that would help them discover and love truth. I know you would jump to that activity. We're educating and raising whole people. We want to develop hearts and minds and characters. Our job is huge. Wouldn't it be incredible to have a freebie for once? To have one thing that we can easily add into our lives' habits that we could trust would organically and with a whole lot of fun, connection, and loving adventure as a family bring this into our children's lives. We'd grasp it. There are incredible resources, and I'll include some on my webpage that can give you reading lists of where to start. Feel free to contact me on l@eloiselehood.com to get you going on those. There are training wheels to get us into stories. Reading begets more reading. And as you and your children fall in love with authors and characters, it's a joy to know that there's so much more where those come from. Go and have a look at eloiselehood.com for more ideas on education and parenting and intentionality. But I wish you well. It's been a fun task for me today, encouraging you to do something that would reap great benefits in your family life and for your children educationally, but also would be a joy, a freebie, something you do not need to prepare, but just intentionally create a habit that would carry great dividends for you and your family. Until next time, take care.